Hi, the world is changing at a remarkable pace. From robotics to communications to genetics to education, you name it. It's changing and it's changing fast. How do we make sense of all of this? How do we unravel where we're going? That's what we're about. Welcome to Mind Matters. I have with me today Max Davies. He is the CEO of Ideology Group, and I'm going to ask him to tell us what he sees from the business community. Welcome, Max.
Well, thanks, Kim. Nice to be here.
Tell me, what's going on out there? We've seen a lot change in business as it's being conducted.
Well, that's true. I mean, we're in a real disruptive pattern. Technology is kind of shaking things up a bit across the board in almost every industry. There's a lot of good to it and there's a lot of bad. In the short term, it's pain. You know, it's kind of like a woman giving birth to a new child. So there's always these cycles of pain when all the contractions occur. We're seeing this politically, we're seeing it economically, we're seeing it in terms of the difficulty of people trying to keep up.
Right. Because
the technology curve is going through the roof.
Yep.
So but it's also leveling the playing field.
All right, so let's hold that thought for a second and let's rewind.
Okay.
How did we get here? The last 50 years have seen significant growth across the board in just about every industry that you can possibly think of. They called it capitalism, but we seem to be migrating towards a post-capitalistic structure. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I wouldn't say it's post-capitalistic. I would say it's probably more of a democratization of opportunity.
Okay.
I think capitalism is alive and well, even in political constructs like China that are inherently dictatorial.
Well, by that I meant in the old days, the manufacture of product took tremendous resources, took a great deal of raw resources,
True.
A lot of capital, a lot of money. Today we seem to be witnessing an entrepreneurial startup marketplace where people have brilliant ideas and within a year they're worth billions of dollars because someone like Google just ate them up.
Snapped them up, right.
Right.
Well, again, it's kind of a function of technology. Technology has leveled the playing field in terms of capital markets, in terms of entry points into the market, so that it's easier for folks to actually have those opportunities and leverage tools that prior to only large organizational structures could have. It is also an exponential kind of paradigm as well, because as the technology curve increases, it's spurring more and more innovation, and innovation creates another exponential ripple effect as well.
The phrase that I've used is the idea, insight, jump leverage, that
Right.
a brilliant idea may occur somewhere on the planet, and within seconds, another brilliant idea is sitting on top of it. And that's new. 50, 60, 100 years ago, if someone on the planet had a brilliant idea, it may take years for that to get propagated around the planet, if ever. And with the advent of the internet and high-speed communication systems, it's now possible for an entrepreneur, for example, having a conversation with somebody in Turkey, and that conversation suddenly leverages into benchmarking into another brilliant idea that you now have a company that 20 seconds ago didn't even exist.
Right. Well, I think the virtualization of those tools facilitates, if you will, that to occur exponentially fast as well.
Right.
Because the communication tools, the tools for e-commerce, the tools for creating content, taking ideas from point A to point B, it's incredible what's available. And that's the thing. We live in an idea utopia in a way, without the utopia piece in terms of applying it in the wrong context. Everybody has an opportunity if they can learn to think in terms of opportunity. I wrote this the other day and gave it to a bunch of folks, business folks online. and they were worried about the economy. Oh, well, you know, we're going through a little cycle. The economy is, we've got a little bit of bump in the road in terms of the markets the last few days. I'm like, you got to think of it differently. This is part of the cycle of disruption. This is an incredible opportunity. Fear is the dark side of opportunity. And opportunity is going to take a little risk, you know? But you have an incredible opportunity in terms of these days, and it's, I mean, the average person. That's why I brought up, you know, it's the democratization of opportunity.
Yeah, I want to elaborate more on that.
But the ideas that people have can get to market a lot quicker. They can work collaboratively around the world with people, and the structure, the structure of organizations themselves are changing, and that, you know, we were talking earlier before we got on camera about what is ideology. What is the ideology group ethos, if you will? Well, it's a pretty interesting, simple concept actually. It is that first you have an idea, you take that idea and you run with it through a series of processes with groups, other people. You bring in people and work collaboratively together to make it happen. That's exactly what it is. And it was really birthed out of studying folks that I've always kind of grown up and enjoyed, you know, reading about and learning about how they thought and how they operated. And I found I had a lot in common with them. And they wanted to create a collaborative kind of union of creatives and thinkers and business people to pull off huge projects.
So we've had this conversation before, but there's a couple of things. First of all, you always hear people talk about out-of-the-box thinking.
Right.
And that's self-limiting. There's no box. Especially in light of some of the innovation that's beginning to occur right in front of our very eyes. Secondly, I had a conversation with someone not too long ago in which they said, that's the way we've always done it. And it caused me to pause. I stopped and I thought for a second because I was beginning to become a little argumentative about that. And then I finally just said, no, wait a minute, let's define always. And so I started the conversation out with, well, you said that's the way we've always done it. Have you done it that way for 5,000 years? Of course not. 1,000 years? Of course not. 100 years? Of course not.
Right.
50 years? Of course not.
Right.
So the whole notion of out-of-the-box thinking is really a misconception. You shouldn't even be thinking that there is a box. Now, one of the things that we've bumped into recently was a phrase known as the collaboration economy. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, honestly, I think the trend lines in terms of where we're going in this disruption I think it really is the future. I think it's the future of organizations. I think it's the future of any kind of structure that previously was a pyramidal structure, kind of a top-down, you know, governments in general kind of operate that way.
So I would propose that the reason we built those top-down structures because we did not have the communication technology in place to be able to communicate directly with the troops. You had to have these hierarchical organizations where the word came down, so to speak, and now we can communicate directly with just about anybody within the planet. So there is no need for this pyramid structure.
Well, I agree. I think the communication tools have definitely provided a basis for that to grow. But also, I think that there is a necessity, because in the disruption that's going on, there's a lot of people that are struggling. But, you know,
and there always will be during transition, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's normative.
Yeah. It's unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, but
right.
let's focus on the positive side of it. And the positive side of it is that what's occurring is that it's bringing people together to work collaboratively to create new things, new opportunities, new businesses, new products, new services, and it's happening in a unique way. It's happening globally, and that's the key thing. That when you have a movement towards that, that is a democratization of opportunity. And it's changing the paradigm of how people produce goods and services, how they interact with one another, how they sell them. It's leveling that playing field out. So what appears to be a real dark period is actually huge opportunities for greater numbers of people than ever before in history.
In order to establish a business 40, 50 years ago, if you opened a storefront, you had a geographic proximity that you were basically serving. You were either Midwest, West Coast, somewhere in China, somewhere in Brussels. What's happened with advanced communications technology is physical location is absolutely irrelevant.
Absolutely.
In fact, it doesn't matter even if you're on the planet here fairly soon. I want to get back to that part of the conversation because our audience here today is also composed of a lot of entrepreneurial thinking students and grad students, and I'm sure that they want to hear more about what should they be doing in order to prepare themselves into migration into the 21st century technology and economy.
I got no pulse for losing.
He's in vape.
Shocking. Drives it road all the time. Just had a few drinks. Just can't be happening.
Are we clear?
Clear. We just buzzed. Just buzzed. You didn't tell us that, sir. You're right. This isn't happening. He'll be fine.
I feel good.
Really? No, not really.
Buzz driving.
Clear.
Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal.
Shocking.
They say that when you're facing extreme danger, your life flashes before you. If you think that's sad, consider facing it before you even have enough life to flash before your eyes. Car crashes are a leading killer of children 1 to 13. Deaths and injuries can be prevented by using the right car seat. Visit safercar.gov/the-right-seat to know what is appropriate for each age and size.
Look at me. Hey.
Raymond, look at Mommy.
Maybe the light hurts his eyes.
Maybe she's just not hungry. Maybe he can't hear us. Maybe we're not stimulating him enough. Maybe it's a phase.
Avoiding eye contact is one early sign of autism. Learn the others today. The sooner it's diagnosed, the better.
Hi, and welcome back to Mind Matters. We're talking about the entrepreneurial economy, the next economy, the collaborative economy, the global economy. Max, we were chatting a little bit about what the world might look like as we move forward. And so let's elaborate on that. I actually have a conversation with all of my grad and undergrad students, and especially the entering freshmen, in which I basically state the world at large as so. That the odds that they will end up working for a company that doesn't even exist when they graduate are actually quite high now. And the odds that one of them in that room could actually found that company are just as high. When we rewind and we look at the major players in the market today, the large majority of them didn't even exist 10 years ago. We have people like Google, and Yahoo is still out there. Facebook didn't even exist 10, 15 years ago. So we seem to be in this very entrepreneurial but also very innovative engine that's going on right now. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I think you nailed it right on the head. I mean, what I see is what I call, I mean, I didn't coin the phrase, I wish I had, but a glocality. So it's global and local. So because of that level playing field, anybody can really take the risk and dive in, and if they have a great idea and develop that great idea out and put a team around it, they can literally create a global company.
And that team can be global in nature.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the virtualization piece and the collaborative piece. What I see is the direction of smaller groups, smaller organizations, and even individuals coming together in organizational structures that are hybrid by design, meaning that they're virtualized, They're collaborative.
And can be short-lived.
Yes, they can do that on a project-by-project basis or for the long term. So it'd be almost like, we did a similar thing at Ideology. We wanted to have more of a flat kind of organizational structure, and we wanted to work with lots of people. We wanted to provide opportunities for a maximum amount of people. So what we did was we created, of course, you've heard the term strategic partnerships and all that, but what the model actually is like a combination of a collaborative think tank, a creative agency, a consulting firm, and in terms of the overall arching model for the organization from a business point of view, it works kind of like a cooperative, kind of like an association,
right,
but it's still a business entity where people can have freedom to be who they are, do what they enjoy doing, use their strengths, and increase their opportunities in a collaborative effort in a virtualized kind of company environment.
So if we contrast that to, once again, I'll rewind to 50, 60 years ago, in order to found a company, you would normally house them all in the same place. They would be all typically within shouting distance of each other because we didn't have this remarkably impressive and efficient communications technology. And as we fast forward to where we are today, the advantages of these modular-like corporations, if you will, is multiple-fold. They're more agile.
Absolutely.
They're a lot more responsive to the marketplace. They're a lot more responsive to innovation. One of the companies that I worked with in the just recent past was in such a niche area of the marketplace that they didn't even know they were out of business yet. And
that's unfortunately true for a lot of businesses.
A lot of companies.
And that's part of the disruption equation that's going on right now.
They really have not done their job in making sure that they're evaluating what's going on in the marketplace, what's going on with their own customers, and what's going on with their own product. Here recently, we've seen such innovation coming out of Google and Apple and Silicon Valley in general that every industry is being disrupted. It's the medical industry. It is the whole educational sector. We're going to have a show on that a little bit later. There is everything you can possibly think about manufacturing with 3D printing coming around the pipe. So how does somebody stay on top of this stuff?
Well, depends on what you mean by staying on top of it. I mean, let me give you an example of how companies like Apple and Google do it.
Okay.
They are gigantic innovators, there's no doubt. They also have a refinement model. I mean, Apple's whole concept of bringing the humanities and technology and design together in a way that is human-derived, human-focused, human-centric technology. But one of the ways that they do it, and it's kind of a little bit of a smoke and mirrors deal, is that small groups, small organizational structures, small companies, could be a guy sitting in his basement. It could be somebody here on this campus, for example. They find those people, look at their ideas, see how, and watch them develop. It goes back to, anybody, including while they're still in school, could wind up being the next big thing and really catapult into business. The interesting thing about how companies like Google and Apple operate is they keep an eye on those kinds of technologies, and they have their own kind of network of people, and they follow people in terms of what their businesses are doing, what their ideas are.
They're always smelling ahead.
They are, and that's actually a fairly traditional model, but it's how quickly they do it. And it's what areas they're focusing on in terms of their own business construct. Another thing that is really interesting is how companies like mine, for example, I have a process I run through every day. So I have a simple process in terms of how I take in information to keep track on what's going on. And I do that in the morning, and I do it in the evening. And then during the middle of the day, I might do it at lunch or something. But
so by, just so the audience understands, that process is all primarily electronically driven,
It is,
right?
absolutely.
Different trade magazines, different groups,
Right.
different organizations, different personal relationships.
Right.
Okay.
But I also, and this, I was in a conversation with some folks from Apple just last week, and we were discussing innovation and how to bring innovation forward and how to maximize it and how to actually look at design and creating products and services in a completely different way outside of a traditional model. And one of the things I said to them is that it's important. I do this every single day. And I think if you study folks like Richard Branson and Walt Disney and Steve Jobs and folks like that, they followed a very similar pattern. And what you do is this: you stop, observe, breathe. You have to slow down because it's moving so fast that everybody thinks
You got to comprehend it.
and you can't take it all in. But if you stop and you just kind of observe what's going on around you, what I call it is, it's basically observation with a purpose. Go and sit in a park and observe how people interact. Go sit in a store, watch the patterns that people.
The pattern of human behavior.
Yeah. And if you want to be, if you're an entrepreneurial spirit, the best thing you can do is observe and figure out what somebody's need in the market is that hasn't been created, and do it.
So let me translate that to a great quote I just saw recently regarding computer interfaces. That if your computer interface requires training, it's a bad interface.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That the best interfaces that we're beginning to serve in the marketplace are those that are so intuitive that babies can work with them, and they are. Now, as we move forward into the new economy, we seem to be abandoning the mass consumer economy and migrating more towards a micro consumer economy in which products are actually being constructed and personalized per the individuals. It's one of the beauties of 3D printing and the whole robotics engines that are going on in the manufacturing process.
We haven't even begin to touch where that's actually going to go.
Right. And so I would propose that as we start accelerating, and I'll use that word very generously, accelerating the next 10 to 15 years as we get deeper into the 21st century, we're going to look back on these periods of mass-produced merchandise as very quaint. The suits that didn't fit, the shoes that didn't fit, the glasses that kind of worked.
Right.
How does a group of students start preparing themselves for such an incredible mind shift?
Well, when I was a kid, I'll answer this by telling a little story. My mom and dad they always wanted me to get outside and play. That's almost a forgotten concept nowadays, but so they bought me this sandbox. And we lived in the South, a little sandbox, probably, I don't know, maybe just 2 feet bigger than this.
You were
table
little,
right
it looked big.
It was huge to me then. It was like a football field. The reason why I bring that up is I would create all kinds of towns and cities, and my imagination, it could go free. My best advice to people is get outside of the normal thinking, right? Don't break the box that people tell you exists by ignoring that box actually really
Even
does exist,
exists.
because it really doesn't.
Right.
And look at things
Human
differently.
constraints.
Yeah, look at it differently. Get in your own sandbox and see what you can dream up.
I call that the aha factor, or the insight jump factor, where you look at a problem so closely that what you really ought to do is go take a float trip, go camping, go backpacking, and in the middle of the night, you're going to come up with a solution.
Right.
We're down, unfortunately, to our last few minutes. I did want to hear a little bit more about the concept of ideology and what caused you to name the firm that very interesting name. So tell me a little bit more.
Well, real quickly, growing up, everybody told me I had to pick something and do it well. Well, it was very difficult for me because I loved all kinds of things. I had such a wide berth in terms of enjoying learning about all kinds of science and history, and I loved creating products and concepts. I mean, I was a big history buff. Walt Disney had a huge impact on me. I would design rides and actually build mock-up versions of them. I was always an idea-driven kid. And as I grew older, I'm like, how do you find something that fits my kind of out of the norm kind of thinking? And I was an entrepreneur from the very beginning. So what better way for me to do something that I enjoy and love to do than to create an organizational structure
That's
that
focused
is
on it.
all about ideas and bringing
Fun.
those ideas to reality, And that's essentially what birthed Ideology Group. There were influences from Disney, from even Apple, and a company called IDEO out of California, which is one of the most influential companies no one's really heard of in terms of mainstream. They're actually the company that invented the idea of a laptop, amongst hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of other things that everybody's lives are touched by every day. So those things kind of came together for me, and I'm like, why don't I just create something completely new? No one's stopping
different.
me. Right.
Yeah.
And right down to how we do how the organizational structure functions, how we deal with people. And I observed a lot of patterns. I saw people that were not getting opportunities, that were stuck in the traditional mindset or stuck in the traditional business trajectory. And I'm like, these people, they blow my mind. I talk to them with incredible ideas. Why not create a company where all these people can actually be a part of it?
A brain party.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're coming to an end. We are a remarkable species. The limits of human imagination are just unbounded. And what we are witnessing is the ability of any individual with a brilliant idea to actually be able to take it to market. If you like the 20th century, you're going to love the 21st. Wait till we get to the 22nd. This has been Mind Matters. Thanks.